Present. We can't say enough. Thank you for your advocacy. We're in uncharted waters at the moment. And it's been a bumpy ride. So thank you all for your hard work, and the impact that you've been making. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it sure as heck doesn't go unnoticed here at Eleos. So we just really, really appreciate that. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll just jump on into it. Is everybody seeing my title slide? Fantastic. So, first and foremost, everyone's probably getting sick of me at this point. I've been on some calls here and there. Some of you I've met on one-on-one calls. Some of you I've met over email. But my name's Caleb Dawson. I'm one of the senior directors of partnerships here at Eleos. And then I'm going to have my team kind of introduce themselves because we're going to be kind of ping-ponging. And if you remember in elementary school, the popcorn rule, we're going to be popcorning around this. So I'll let Christy take it from here. And Christy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm Christy Donoff, AVP of Strategic Partnerships. Good to see so many familiar faces. I'll keep it short and pass it to Denny.
Hi, everybody. I'm Denny Morrison. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer here at Eleos.
Hi, everyone.
Sure.
My name is Lowell Zaide. I'm one of the co-founders here at Eleos. I oversee all our commercial partnerships. Pleasure to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Benedetto. I'm the Customer Insights Manager here at Eleos.
Hi, everybody. Brian Campbell, National Director of Strategic Partnerships, manage our relationship with National Council, and in my past life, am a recovering EHR salesperson that had the privilege of working with a lot of the providers across Indiana. So happy to be here today in support of Caleb and the team. Thank you. Sean?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Imel. I'm a solutions engineer here at Eleos, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So we have experts from all over Elios that have come to kind of talk about this. So thanks, everybody. So we have a fully packed agenda that we're going to be getting through. We're first going to start with what's our why? And then we're going to jump into the impact of Elios. We're kind of going to outline what a potential group purchase is going to look like. And then, I can't say this enough, the collaborative journey that we're all going to go through during this process. This is a journey. This is not a sales process that we're going to be taking you through. So something that we can all do together and lock arms while we do this. But first, I'm going to toss it over to Dror. Dror, I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity from being a co-founder, to explain your why and why Elios, how did we get here, and all of those types of things. I think that you have a very unique perspective that everybody would be interested in.
Sure. So quickly about myself and why we're here. Very simple. I don't come from a healthcare background or a behavioral health background. I served in the military for many, many years, and I had a soldier that tried to take his own life by overdosing. And luckily, providers like you have saved his life. And then I co-founded the first PTSD workshop for people who served like us. And in addition, I have family members who are dealing with bipolar disorder, that I was kind of like the family liaison from the family to, communicate together with the providers and try to balance. And I'm very lucky to say that like the people that are close to me are balanced today, and they're alive and they're married and they're working because of providers like you. So first, want to say thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. I think that a lot of time it's taken for granted, and it was taken for granted even by me before I understood what's really going on. And I swore to never take it for granted anymore. And Team Elios doesn't take it for granted. I also want to say, Zoe, thank you for your leadership on this. And you said something that like we need to take some celebrations, especially at like rough times. So I just want to say that like I'm sitting here, I have people here on the call that when we started, we were 3 students with like a vision to make tools better for providers to enjoy their work with clients and provide better care. And I'm sitting here with people like Denny and Christy and Sean and Kate and Brian that all come, Caleb, that come from this industry. They're much more professional about this industry, and we get the privilege to be speaking with all the centers of a state I don't take that for granted also. So thank you all for what you're doing. Your work and providers like you saved people that I love, and allowed us to, keep on going with life. And I'm really looking forward for the conversation today. And thinking if Elios could be a good fit. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew, for that perspective. So one of the big things that we talk about here at Eleos, and one of our slogans here that we take super seriously is you care, we care. So just to show some of that impact of what that really means, we have a quick video that I would like to show just to kind of really hit home that impact that we're trying to make here. And please let me know if you can't, it seems like my computer's been a little wonky this morning, so let me know if you can't hear it, and I'll make sure that I get it figured out. But thanks, everybody.
There was a lot of secrecy and stigma for many, many decades. Behavioral health was something that people shut behind a closed door. Number one, in therapy school, they don't tell you the amount of paperwork that you need to do. Mental health, extremely bureaucratic. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork to do, somewhere between 20 to 25 pieces.
Documentation is really important, but it's also really terrible and people hate it.
This paperwork is important, if not more important than our clients. That just don't make sense. We could be doing phenomenal clinical work and yet all.
Did Caleb drop? Is that maybe what happened with the video?
That looks like to be the case.
I can
All right.
pull it up quickly. I'm gonna try and share my screen here.
There was a lot of secrecy and stigma for many, many decades. Behavioral health was something that people shut behind a closed door.
Number one, in therapy school, they don't tell you the amount of paperwork that you need to do.
Mental health, extremely bureaucratic.
There's a tremendous amount of paperwork to do, somewhere between 20 to 25 pieces.
Documentation is really important, but it's also really terrible and people hate it.
This paperwork is important, if not more important than our clients.
That just don't make sense. We could be doing phenomenal clinical work, and yet all of that is working against us. You feel like you're not helping enough, and so that creates a lot of burnout.
There are more folks leaving this industry than are coming into it.
Without access to mental health care and substance use treatment, often end up being served in emergency departments or hospitals. We have a wait list that just keeps coming. Most people that go into this field really come in out of a deep passion and mission.
I just want to be there and be helpful, but how are you supposed to have time for that when you're drowned in paperwork?
We're in a world now where augmented intelligence is becoming so sophisticated that they've taken that technology and they're applying it to this specific problem.
How do we care for those who need more while also not pushing our clinicians to the brink of their emotional needs?
I just want more time and energy on client care, not paperwork. What if it wasn't so tiring? What if it wasn't so exhausting to be a therapist? I believe I could do so much more.
All right. Is Caleb back? I can't see all the people here on the screen.
I don't believe so.
No. I'm happy to take
just,
over the floor if you
yeah,
like.
please do. Yeah.
All right. Well, first of all, Dora, thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective and sharing your background. It's important for people to truly understand that the heartbeat from Eleos starts at the top. But we have had the privilege over the years of having members of the behavioral health community join Eleos and become a part of our mission and part of our vision. And I get the privilege of introducing Dr. Denny Morrison first. Denny comes to us as a former executive director of a behavioral health organization just like yours. And we've asked him to share his perspective on kind of what has brought him to Eleos and the impact that, in a sense, it would have had in the role that he previously played before joining us. So with that, Dr. Morrison, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Christy. Some of the people on this call might recognize me. I used to run the mental health center in Bloomington for 13 years. Suzanne Kozel was my chief operating officer, and coincidentally, she and I had breakfast a couple of days ago. So we've been had the opportunity. We stay in touch and get together pretty regularly. Also as a veteran, I have of the U.S. Navy, I was very appreciative of the perspective that Dror and the other co-founders who were also in the military took relative to this challenge of building Eleos. I'm still in Bloomington, but I joined Eleos as a consultant pushing almost 6 years ago. It was about the time they had just started. And as Dror and Elon Yofi and I discussed coming on board, when I heard what they were doing, it reminded me, I had forgotten, I had done a TED Talk at NatCon about 10 years previously on what we could potentially accomplish in the behavioral health industry using artificial intelligence and other technologies. When I ran the mental health center in Bloomington, we were a very early adopter for technology. I believed technology could make a difference for everybody when it was prudently applied to clinical care. And so when I was approached by Eleos to join them as a consultant, it was kind of a no-brainer because what they were doing, first they had a real product, not just a great idea, but it was also what they were focusing on was to provide probably the first product I've ever seen that was directed at helping clinicians do their jobs better. We claimed that EHRs were going to do that, but they didn't. They actually made it worse, probably. It helped the organization, but it didn't really help the clinicians. And so it was really exciting for me to be part of a system that would provide tools that could help clinicians do their jobs better, easier, faster. And with that, like I've been with Eleos, and then for the past 4 or 5 months, I've been their chief clinical officer. So it's been really a lot of fun. One of the things I've been really impressed with is the speed of adoption for AI technologies generally, and specifically Eleos. And it's because I think they've tapped a need out there that you kind of saw previewed in that video of how difficult it is for clinicians to do their jobs with the overwhelming paperwork demands. So in addition to that, providing clinical insights and things that they may not have valued before they start using an augmented intelligence product, that's really kind of the reason I'm here, because I want to see clinicians do their jobs better. And just for those of you, since I'm around, I'd be happy to answer any questions offline. My email is denny@drdennym.com. So who's next? Kate?
Yep.
Okay, that would be me. So good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Kate Benedetto, and I'm one of the customer insights managers here at Eleos. And I'll give you a little overview of what that means too in a minute. But a little background about myself is I am a former therapist and former case manager. So I was very much the Friday night person sitting there writing my notes from I don't even know how many sessions during the week. And frankly, my notes were probably terrible because it was Friday night and I was tired. And I also didn't really understand, I think, at that time, some of the importance of documentation. I also just kind of didn't want to do it. That's not why I got into behavioral health. So that was a big piece of actually why I ended up leaving direct client care was the sheer volume of paperwork that I was doing on a regular basis, coupled with a lot of, as a case manager, I was driving around. So I was spending all of this time either driving from place to place, seeing clients. There was no time for administrative things, trying to meet productivity. And frankly, I got completely burnt out by it. So about halfway through what is now about a 20-year career in behavioral health, switched to more of an administrative role. So I've also spent time in quality assurance. So I spent time auditing notes, which was a completely different side of clinical behavioral health. So now I'm seeing all of the things that I probably did very terribly. Did that for a little while, did a lot of training around documentation. And then also at some point shifted into IT. So I was managing our IT department and somehow also got roped into revenue cycles. So kind of connecting all of these pieces, a lot of understanding about the clinician side of things, quality side of things, revenue cycle side of things, and the IT side of things. So from all of those various lenses, I very much feel and understand how clinicians feel about this on a daily basis. So when this opportunity came up to join Eleos in this customer insights role, what I get to do is I get to take all of that experience and be able to think, what do customers need? So if we're talking about these augmented intelligence products, what do you actually need from us? What do you need us to support you with? What do the clinicians need from this? Because at the end of the day, that's who we want to help. We want to make sure that those folks that are completely taxed and taking home sometimes very traumatic things at the end of the day are being supported through documentation support. They're finding better ways, more efficient ways. And that's the part that I really love about this. And that was the excitement for me when this came about, was having worked in the community mental health space and seeing just the sheer volume of administrative things and bureaucratic things, and it just continues to pile on every year. This was an opportunity to impact things on a bigger scale. And for me, that was so exciting. And that was all right, I think this is a really good opportunity to do this. So I made the shift over to Eleos actually in January of this year. And super excited to just continue on this journey to understand how we as an organization and a company can continue to help people that are doing the really hard work to support our clients every single day, every single hour of the day through some really tough times.
Thanks, Kate. Sorry for those. I froze there for a second, but I'm back. Thank you for those insights, Denny and Kate. So does anybody have any questions about their experiences? Anything that you want to dig into perhaps about that switch from coming over from being a provider, being someone that's providing that direct care, now over to kind of working on the technology side of things? Because we definitely can answer some of those questions and would love to give you that insight. If not, all right. So for some of you have seen this over the past couple of months. We've done a couple different demonstrations, but for those who haven't seen Eleos, here at Eleos, we've developed two core solutions here. One being documentation focused, the second one being compliance focused. So documentation is exactly what you think it is. So really streamlining that progress note process. Our models have been built on over 10 million minutes worth of real life behavioral health sessions. And we have built the largest model specifically tailored to it. So that's really something that sets us apart. So what Sean's going to show you is kind of the two different kind of routes that you can utilize our documentation AI for. And then the second one being our compliance, where we've come to find out that a lot of CQI teams in agencies, you have thousands and thousands of notes that you get, and you only have a certain amount of people to evaluate those notes for areas that might be incomplete. They could be missing, they could be missing progress mentions. They could be missing a reference to the golden thread, and it's exhausting. You don't have enough people to do that. So what we have given you is the ability for you to review 100% of your progress notes, and we can help you direct your team's attention to the areas that need it the most, rather than searching through that needle in a haystack, right? So what Sean's going to show you here first is documentation. So Sean, go ahead and take it away.
Cool, perfect. So yeah, like Caleb said, I'm going to take a second to walk through documentation. A couple things I kind of want to level set as we jump in. So first, Eleos is compatible with any web-based EHR. So I'm showing Smart Care here. We have clients on a variety of EHRs from, Credible, Smart Care, Welligent, the list goes on and on. The other thing I want to highlight is Eleos is a very lightweight application. So technically we're a browser extension and we're just going to sit right on top of that progress note. But what that really means for your agencies is in terms of deployment, this is going to be a quick and easy process. So, a little bit about me, I've spent 15 years deploying technology in healthcare, agencies and hospitals. So I'm very familiar with the 8 to 10 month cycle of, standing up an EHR, standing up a new technology. Eleos is not like that. We typically get our clients live in 4 to 6 weeks because the platform is so lightweight. So to kind of talk through how this works, Caleb talked about how we have built our models on over 10 million minutes of behavioral health talk therapy data. So you'll see, here on the right-hand side, we have key moments. As a provider, when I sit down with a client, I'm actually able to start Eleos and allow Eleos to be a passive listener to that talk therapy conversation. This applies to in-person and telehealth therapy sessions. But what this means for me as a provider is I'm actually going to be more engaged with my client. And this is an outcome that we're seeing at Eleos. Client satisfaction is going up. Engagement is higher. And it's because as a provider, I'm not, buried in a computer. I'm not buried in my notes. I'm present with that client. And I know that Eleos is going to take care of the notes for me. So let me kind of walk through how this works. I'm showing kind of a basic DAP note template, but at Eleos will actually work with you to build out your exact note templates here. So once that session wraps up within 1 to 2 minutes, Eleos is going to generate these key moments. And you can think of these like objective facts of what took place in the therapy session. You've said a couple times that we built our models on over 10 million minutes of behavioral health talk therapy data. You're going to see we're going to pick up on things like interventions or clinical techniques used. And, this is all throughout the natural course of the conversation. But I really want to jump in and show you how easy this is. So as a provider, I simply click into a narrative box of the note. I find a suggestion from Eleos that I want to pull in, and I click that button, and we're actually going to write that directly into the EHR. One really cool thing we're seeing with Eleos is about 2 more interventions documented per session. And this isn't because providers are using these techniques more, but with Eleos, we're that clinical listener, we're second therapist in the room. So we're going to pick up on all those techniques used. And I've talked to providers who have used Eleos and they said, I didn't even realize I used motivational interviewing. It's second nature after, doing this work for 20 years. So we're here to make sure your providers get the credit for the fantastic work they're already doing. We're also seeing providers use about 50 to 60% of our suggestions. So what that really means for you and your providers is your providers are in full control of what goes into the note. And we're actually going to learn from them over time. So we'll learn from the suggestions they use, and we're going to continue to refine the model to better serve your specific providers and your agency. As we kind of wrap up the note here, we'll pull a couple more suggestions in, and you'll see this whole workflow takes about 2 to 3 minutes to walk through and actually complete a note. What we're seeing is Eleos generates about 80 to 90% of that final note content. We're leaning on your providers to give us the last 10 to 20%. And I'll quickly highlight one other quick feature as we wrap up the note here. In any free text field, maybe you do have a field that's for additional comments, or as a provider, I just want to put one more note in here. I can actually type any, shorthand, a brief statement. I can toss this to Eleos. And Eleos is going to help generate a more comprehensive, clinically appropriate way to say this. Again, providers are in full control with Eleos, so I can choose to discard. I can ask Eleos to try again. Or we can go ahead and use that text. And again, you can see how quick and easy that process is. So I'll go ahead and submit this note. If there are any questions, by the way, feel free to drop those in the chat. Caleb, do we have any that we want to address, or should I move to text input?
Not yet. Go,
Okay.
go for it.
So at Eleos, we're also huge on collecting feedback from users. So every 5 or 6 notes, we'll ask a user to tell us how the experience was. We're very transparent, and that feedback actually comes directly back to your agency through a dashboard. So you can see the health of Eleos, you can see usage, all kinds of metrics that just help you have full transparency into how Eleos is being used and how happy your providers are with it. So what I just covered again was kind of our audio input for telehealth and in-person sessions. I'm going to show one more documentation workflow here, and this is what we call text input. At Eleos, we understand that your providers are offering a variety of services in different settings, and we're here to meet your providers where they're at. We want to make the workflow as simple as possible. So we understand that you might have a client who comes in and they say, you know what, I don't want Eleos to be a passive listener to this conversation. Or maybe as a provider, I'm in a noisy environment where passive listening isn't really possible. We're just going to ask the provider in this workflow to give us a few bullets, type them in, and kind of tell us the highlights of that session. So the first thing they're going to do is kind of focus our models. We understand what we might document for play therapy for a child is going to look very different than case management for an adult. So once our models are focused, now we're going to ask the provider to just give us those 5 to 6 highlights of what took place in the session. So providers are going to jot those down. And I'll kind of go through this quickly, but I want to highlight with Eleos, these text inputs can be entered in any language. So if you're at an agency that has bilingual staff, maybe English isn't their first language, we're here to support them there as well. So they can put these text inputs in a different language, and we'll actually generate that note in English for them. So this also sits right on top of your note template in the EHR. This is actually all we need. So again, a very quick workflow. We do have the option to pull in interventions, mental status exam, or a plan. But from here, we'll go ahead and generate a note. And you'll see Eleos is going to write this content into the appropriate fields right in the EHR. And the same thing holds true here. We're generating about 80 to 90% of that note content for your providers. They're free to kind of edit and modify this however they see fit. And the last thing I'll highlight with this workflow, we're not going to show it today, but we also have a mobile solution that follows this text input workflow. So on any smartphone, your community-based providers they're out in the field, maybe doing case management or peer support, they can actually take their cell phone, they can generate a draft note with these bullet points, and that draft note will actually be sitting in Eleos in the EHR waiting for them. So we're really seeing a huge burden lifted off of those community-based providers with this tool as well. So I'll stop there and kick it back to Caleb for a second.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. I haven't seen any questions come up in the chat. Very quickly, just to give you kind of an idea of the impact that documentation is making on an agency, I have a quick little video to show you, and then we'll toss it over back to Sean. He'll show you compliance for a brief second, and then we'll kind of go what's to come from this point on. Okay? Sounds great. And it looks like there is a question in the chat. Sean, Janet, it said, once the note is done, where does the information go? So you can answer that while I'm getting this pulled up.
Sure. So, at Eleos, our stance is your EHR is the source of truth for documentation. So essentially, we're going to hold on to those key moments or that note content generated by Eleos until you as a provider actually go to submit the note in the EHR. So we're going to write all that content into the EHR. And again, ultimately, your EHR is the source of truth for that.
Thank you, Sean. Just running into all the issues this morning. All right, I think I'm good to go. Thanks, Sean. So this is just the impact that documentation is making within an agency. This is actually one of our clients, Jefferson Center, which is out in Colorado, where Christy lives. Thanks, everybody.
Biggest challenge that we face in mental health and substance use treatment right now is that we have undervalued and underinvested in behavioral health for decades. Kind of the joys and the downside of being a clinician is a lot of times there is a lot of documentation, especially working with Medicaid or kind of more like low-income clients. Jefferson Center has been around for more than 6 decades. We serve nearly 27,000 people a year. We're a community mental health and substance use treatment provider serving folks across Colorado.
One of the other challenges, other than funding, that we deal with here at Jefferson Center is how we have navigated the trend over the last decade or so that there are more folks leaving this industry for retirement or being burnt out, et cetera, than are coming into it. Documentation is really important, but it's also really terrible and people hate it. I mean, generally speaking, they really just dislike it.
With Eleos, it's easier to not have to open up the figurative file folder that I have for each of my clients every time I'm trying to take a note.
Eleos has really taken an approach of that they see the documentation and the burden associated with it as a big problem.
We selected Eleos very specifically, targeting one of our strategic goals related to our team engagement and addressing burnout.
When it comes to our partnership with Eleos and why it's special and important to us is they're really paying attention to what are all the nuances about how to make every little bit of the workflow work.
The trainers were fantastic. They're really helpful, really engaging. I've been very, very impressed with Eleos's customer support.
It has been really, really wonderful working with the Eleos team. It feels like a partnership with a team who really has compassion for the work that we do.
Ever since we started using Eleos, we're getting rave feedback from our staff.
I would definitely recommend Eleos to some of my colleagues or other organizations, and even whether it be using the audio or the text option, I think they're both extremely helpful, can help providing more thorough documentation, can help with allowing to be more present with your clients.
I would say that Eleos helps my clients because it allows me to be more emotionally available. It also helps me to not feel overwhelmed by my paperwork.
The Eleos team has been really great to work with. It's encouraging when you work with a company at the really mission-driven organization. They really care about what they're doing and making the world a better place.
Awesome. Thank you all for watching that. So just focusing on our customer support, what it really means to be part of the Eleos Health family. And again, can't say this enough, the you care, we really do care. So with that being said, Sean, if you really want to just show our compliance very quickly, and then we'll get into the meat of it with what is this group purchase thing and what does it mean and all those details.
Sure, Caleb. I'm going to quickly answer a couple questions that popped up. The first I see, is data stored or transmitted? Is data encrypted? So we have a very, serious security posture here at Eleos. So first I'll say all data is encrypted in transit and at rest. We're fully HIPAA compliant. Everything's stored in Amazon Web Services cloud servers here in the US. We have a lot of information on this we can share. I know security is really important. Let's see. And then once the data is gone, okay, it looks like Christy is taking care of that one. So I will jump into compliance. If there are any other questions we want to answer live, just let me know, Caleb. All right. So I'm going to quickly walk through compliance here. So to kind of set the stage, Kate talked about her experience working in quality. We understand that a lot of agencies have teams dedicated to, quality assurance, and typically, what they're able to accomplish in a year is maybe they review 10, 15, 20% of notes. But what can be particularly challenging about that is of the 10 to 20% of notes that they actually review in a year, 70 or 80% of those are generally fine. So really, 1/10, 2/10 of those notes are problematic. So we developed a solution to help those teams find notes that actually have some issues, so that those teams can spend closer to 100% of their time reviewing notes that actually need attention. So we deliver compliance in a web-based dashboard. So your agency determines who has access to this. In terms of how we get this data, we're happy to share more on that, but the very short, high-level version is we work with you to kind of extract notes from your EHR. This is a real-time dashboard, so it's refreshed daily in most cases, depending on the agency we work with. But let me walk through how this works. So we have trained our models to evaluate really 6 core areas of notes. and I'll kind of walk through those. So the first is empty fields. So we're looking at a note, we're kind of evaluating, are there text fields where there's nothing, so it's completely blank, or maybe it's just 4 or 5 words, there's not a whole lot there. So we're gonna flag that for you. We're also looking at note cloning. So are there notes where a provider is kind of copy and pasting the same content over and over again? We'll highlight that. This one's super important, so we're looking for that tie to the golden thread. Does the progress note mention, make reference to the treatment plan? But we're also going to check here to make sure that treatment plan is active. Then the last 3 areas I'll highlight. Is there a compliant plan in the note? Does the note mention interventions? And is progress mentioned? So from these 6 areas, we're providing all kinds of metrics to help your quality teams. The first kind of being a high level trend over time. So as an agency, maybe you're really interested in seeing that golden thread improve. You can kind of see here how you're trending over time with each one of these 6 categories. Then we kind of start to drill in a little bit more specifically, so we can slice this by program. And for each program, we're actually going to calculate kind of an aggregate score for compliance based on each of those 6 metrics. So you can, again, as a quality team, you could say, hey, program, case management is really doing a great job with their notes, but maybe this other program is struggling and we should dig in there and focus on that. Same thing with supervisors. So we'll provide this aggregate score by supervisor. Then we start to drill into staff. So we'll actually give you specific providers. We'll give you that compliance score. We'll give you the score for each of those metrics. And then ultimately, we're going to get down to the note level, where as an agency, we can say, hey, I want to filter this, and I just want to see those high-risk notes, and that's what our team's going to focus on. And we're going to call out specifically where there is an issue with those notes. The last thing I'll highlight here is you do have the ability to kind of filter this, by program, supervisor, therapist. And then, of course, you can slice and dice this data however you want. So if we really just want to define those high-risk notes, we can do that. I know we don't have a ton of time, Caleb, so I'm going to toss it back to you to wrap up here.
Yeah, and I did have one more impact video just to show kind of one of our clients. I can send it along afterwards. It's Ronnie. He's the CIO over at Grand Mental Health. It's a great testimonial that we have. I'll send it along afterwards to everybody, or send it to Zoe to maybe distribute. There were a couple other questions in the chat. And keep me honest, Sean. Mohammed had asked, does Eleos generate real-time suggestions real-time during the session, post-session, or does the provider need to initiate this process? Keep me honest. Everything is generated real-time. And in terms of the session, whether it's telehealth or in person, when audio is being captured, it doesn't matter. All of it is always real-time. Then there was the question about, is it generated? There's concerns around cookie cutter generated notes and suggestions. That all really goes back to the robustness, if that's a word, of our models here at Eleos. Because they've been trained on so many minutes, everything that you saw, you could have that session 30 times and you're never going to get the same exact suggestions twice. And that's really, so kind of, as you can see here, documentation and compliance are kind of working in harmony, right? Documentation's taking care of that front end, no cookie cutter, things like that. And then on the back end, where compliance is helping even more, is maybe areas that weren't filled in, or maybe even notes that weren't even completed with Eleos, looking out for those other key areas. So, Sean, keep me honest, is that pretty accurate?
Yep, 100%. I see one more question I'll address quickly, really around the security of our mobile application. So we do have agencies who allow providers to use personal devices. It's, of course, an agency decision whether or not you want those personal devices to leverage Eleos. What I will say again is we're fully HIPAA compliant. And when you think about data storage, we're storing that data in our HIPAA compliant cloud infrastructure. We have protocols in place for authentication into the application. We would strongly recommend that you also, require your users to have some kind of authentication on the device itself, whether that's biometric or something else. But those are conversations we navigate often with our partner agencies is, hey, we have personal devices. How do we best leverage Eleos? But just know, in terms of peace of mind there, again, we have a very strong security posture, and that applies to the mobile side as well. And we're happy to provide more information and continue those conversations.
Thank you, Sean. Really appreciate that. And please keep the questions coming. Chrissy, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just checking to make sure that my response to Laura answered your question, because you were asking about different EHRs or struggles. Did that answer your question, or are there things that we can address quickly?
I didn't see that it was in the chat, so I'll have to go read it. I'll
Okay.
respond to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Just wanted to make sure you got your answer.
Thanks, Christy. All right, so I know we're getting short on time here, and I'm popping in and out of slides all the time, so hopefully no one's getting nauseous from it. But really quickly, we are something that we've shared. We are partnered with over 150 organizations across the United States. We have 20,000 providers that trust us each and every single day, and we are a National Council Gold partner. So we will be at NatCon. We'd love to see you all there. Come say hi, meet the team, meet Dror, meet Denny, meet Christy. We'd all love to see you and just get that one-on-one time with you. So please do stop by, and there will be more information coming out on that here very shortly. So the cat's out of the bag. We're kicking off this group purchase process with Eleos, and we could not be more excited. But how did we get to this point? You know, Zoe did a great job at the very beginning explaining that this has been a long journey, and it has taken some time in getting to know one another, getting to know members, figuring out if there's that partnership opportunity, and we're excited to be at that point in time. So what does this all mean? What are the benefits of a group purchase, right? For those that it's their first experience doing this, what does this all mean? All this really means is that there's going to be a lower cost through group discounts. The ability, and what I think is the coolest thing about group purchase, is the ability to share stories and learnings from organization to organization. You know, I always thought it would be really cool to do the opportunity of a round table of Eleos users in Indiana to say, what's working for you? What were some of the challenges you were facing? Oh, I've solved it this way. Those are those types of opportunities that are going to be a part of this kind of experience that we have here with group purchase. Also with contracting, and Chrissy will talk about this here in a second, but a smoother contracting experience where you're not going to have to worry about it because there's going to be one source sole contract, and Christy will talk about that here in a second. And the most important thing, better care for your clients. Getting Eleos in the hands of your clinicians, not only making their days easier day in and day out, getting to kind of decompress at the end of the day, knowing that they're not going to take home that, as Kate said, some of those traumatic things that they experienced during that day. They get to release that. They get to be with their family, and then most importantly, more client-centric care, being present with listening to them and present with them in that room or via telehealth. So the process of a group purchase, what's going to happen, and I'm going to go through a couple different things here, is we're going to start off, and Zoe did a great job of this at the beginning. It's going to be a survey that's going to be sent out to members. Keep in mind that group purchase is a completely optional experience. We are not forcing anyone's hand. We just use this survey in order to gauge interest across the agency. Because what we've had happen is, in one of our learnings from this, is we want to make sure that everyone is aware of this experience happening. Because the last thing that we want to do is leave anybody behind, feel like anyone's excluded. We want to make sure that everyone is part of this, arm in arm, who wants to be part of this process. And it is 100% okay if you don't want to. That's up to you, and that's up to your agency. There's also going to be curated Indiana Council events, and I got great news about one yesterday that I'm excited to kind of tease here at the end of it. And then what we're going to do at the end of all this is we're going to take those survey results. We're going to take all these, the attendance from these events and things like that, and we're going to come up with tailored pricing specifically for Indiana Council based on users' interests that you're not going to have access outside of this group. And then we'll have a set date and time that contracts will come in, and we're all going to hit the ground running and be so excited to really kick off the Eleos experience within each one of your organizations. So again, I said this earlier, this is a guided journey. This is not a sales process. This is a guided journey. I had ChatGPT put this together. I think it's a really cool image, but we are marching hand in hand together throughout this. So yeah, I'll tell the Eleos team how that came up. It looks like someone from our marketing team did it. I thought it was pretty cool. So to begin, there's going to be, I'm throwing up this QR code. So this is the survey. So it takes less, I think on average, I think we have a timer. It takes less than 3 minutes to complete. It's going to be, you can break my heart, but if you're not interested, you can hit no and it's a lot faster, but I don't think anyone on here is going to do that to us. So complete this survey, help us gauge your interests, and then we'll take that information back to help scope pricing. The next experience that we have is coming up on April 17th. And everyone's probably like, Caleb, another demo. What are you doing? This is an opportunity for your team that hasn't seen Eleos. Maybe you have clinicians that want to see it. Maybe you have other IT people that you want to see it. Maybe you have other leadership members that want to see it. But this is your time to sign up for this event. Come on with your questions ready. We'll do a deeper dive presentation and we'll get all of those answered for you. So that way there's no question that doesn't go unanswered. Again, to expose everyone that you need to expose to this, that this is something that we're looking at and getting their feedback so you can evaluate internally. Next, coming up so we have the 515 quarterly, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But in May, on the 29th, Dror and the founders are going to come, all the technical experts. We're going to talk about implementation, customer support, what that means, and have all of your questions answered on the 29th. Again, another hour session, completely optional. Register, sign up, come with your questions. What does all that look like? But as you can see of what I'm talking about here, we want this to be a curated experience to where everyone that's part of Indiana Council can make a very educated decision based on a full evaluation of Eleos. And then lastly, kind of going back in time here, I apologize for going later in May to kind of earlier in May. On the evening of Thursday, May 15th, after the, I think there's a reception. After that reception, I'm a Ball State grad, so chirp, chirp, happy to be back in Muncie. But after that reception, if folks are familiar with Minnetrista, it's an event area within Muncie, very beautiful. We're going to be hosting a executive experience that night. So we'll have a shuttle. We'll come grab everybody. We'll bring you all over to Minnetrista, which is about, I think it's like a 3 or 4 minute car ride. We're going to go have an awesome dinner. We're going to hear a little bit more about after Eleos, meaning, what to expect. Talk about QBRs, customer success, support, implementation, all of those things. And then to cap it all off, we have not cap it all off, but we want to make this a really fun event for everybody. So not to let the cat out of the bag, but as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a fun little guy named Bob Ross that everyone's seen. And that's all I'm going to give you. But we're going to have a super great, fun night that we would all love for you to be a part of. So register, get signed up, and we hope to see you in Muncie at this event. So with that being said, I'm going to toss it over to Christy. She's going to talk a little bit more about the details of contracting and those things. But thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Caleb. And William, I saw your comment about asking for the link. We'll make sure you have the hard link if the QR code wasn't working. So not a problem. The other thing that we'll share along, I know there's a lot of questions around IT security. And we have collected sort of third-party perspective on Eleos's security posture, and then we've outlined that anonymously against the overall EHR industry and the technology landscape within behavioral health. So you can kind of get a sense for how Eleos kind of stacks up on some of those things. So we'll share those as follow-up. But just very quickly, I know we're at the top of our time. One of the things that Caleb mentioned is from a contracting perspective, we'll be working with Denise and Zoe to ensure that we have a clean contract for Indiana Council members to utilize on the group purchase. So it'll be a single contract that you all will sign individually with Eleos. So we'll still have the MSA and BAA that exists between us, but all of that negotiation, all of that work is done in advance for you. Discounts are applied to everybody. So we say at Eleos, all boats rise with the tide, or to, copy John F. Kennedy, but that's really our heartbeat is we know that AI is important. We also know that AI can be expensive, and how we can work together to create speed and efficiency in our processes allows us to drive those costs down. So our goal is to, as Caleb mentioned through this journey, is to help answer the most common questions, the most common things that we hear from folks as they evaluate Eleos. So we're there to sort of guide you through that process, but let us know if there's topic areas that you want us to focus on, and we'll be sure to curate that into the experience for Indiana Council. So with that, Caleb, I'll pass it to you for final
Yeah.
round, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, Zoe, Denise. I know I'm missing people because I've been talking this whole time. Thank you so much for this opportunity to come on here and share Eleos and really just have this experience with all of you. If anybody has any questions, my email address is calebd as in David @eleos.health. If you have questions about security or you want to have a one-on-one meeting to address some of those questions, please reach out to me. I'm here to support you. We're here to support you, and we want to get those questions answered. But thank you all so much for this opportunity. It means a lot. So Zoe, I'll toss it over to you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eleos team. Thank you to our members for being on. Please complete that survey, because that will help us with coming up with the best situation for our members. And then one other survey, once you're done completing that we would really like to hear from you on is our member survey. So Leanne just sent that out. If you have not had a chance to do that, and in that survey, AI has been one that members have shared. Health insurance has been another. But if there are other shared group contracts such as this that would be beneficial to all of you, please share that feedback on the member survey, because we want to make sure that we are adding benefit to all of you and our systems. So without further ado, I wanted to say our Starbucks winner is Kelly Hollihan from you're our Starbucks winner, so you will get the gift card. And I know we are over time, so I'm going to raise my A&C cup that I use all the time here to cheers everyone, and really hope everyone has a great day. Really looking forward to this collaboration and partnership with Eleos and all of you. And so any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a fantastic day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.